Welcome to RoadSync's second webinar. I'm delighted to have Brian Becker here with me today. He is with us from Canton Towing, as well as a couple other businesses that he owns. My name again is Robin Gregg, and I'm the CEO of RoadSync. We're just going to talk about Brian's experience growing and scaling a towing business, largely through acquisition as well as organic growth, and just try to make it an interesting conversation. So, Brian, thank you. Would love for you just to start by introducing yourself and telling us a little bit about how you got into the towing business.
I appreciate you having me. Humbled that you chose me to come and join you. It's crazy that it's went from two people and a truck to this. So my parents owned a body shop my whole life growing up. Basically, I didn't have a dad until I was 18, and he was about ready to retire. Um, you know, old school. He worked from sun up to sundown, and that's just how it was. Mom stayed at home and took care of us. I got into my 20s and, they asked me what I was going to do the rest of my life. And I was, I thought drinking and running around having fun was the way to go. And they brought me into the family business. I quickly realized I had asthma and allergies and didn't like being held to the four walls of the office. So we had one tow truck in the parking lot, and I started running it. And from there it just kind of grew. I met a few towers in the area. I got to work with them, which showed me a whole bigger picture or aspect of what the industry actually is. Grew to love it. Mom and dad came to me a couple years later and they said, "Hey, we're retiring, so buy the business or find a job." I said, "Well, um, I'm not married yet. I don't have any money. It's probably not going to work." They said, "All right, cool. We'll give you a loan." So we did a little off the books loan, and it was at the time my girlfriend, which is my wife now, and I, two trucks, and we started going at it. From there, about a year and a half in, we had added a part-time employee and an office lady who helped us. Um, and a random towing company called me and they're like, "Hey, can you come up, help us figure out how to buy trucks and do a couple things?" I got there and they told me they wanted me to buy the business. Well, I'm like, I don't even really know how to run mine yet. So what's that look like? Went to the accountant, went to the bank. The bank would only fund me 50% of the loan. We got the deal done, ended up with that company. We grew to about 10 employees at that point. And then from there, it went on into a bunch of other purchasing a bunch of other companies and where we are today.
So I didn't realize you purchased your first company. Well, obviously your first company was your parents' company, but the first new acquisition was really early. It sounds like you were just what, two or three employees, and how many years in were you at that point?
It was in the first year and a half.
Why did you want to do it? Like what did you just want to go faster? Did you just think it was a great opportunity? Like what about that acquisition made you know that that was the right thing to do for your business and was a great way to grow it?
A lot of prayer and also a lot of just what was out there and how do we use it. As I started with my dad's business, it was a small town business. So, they would he stuck right to the community. And then when I started running the towing company and we shut the body shop down, I quickly realized if I wanted a paycheck, we had to get outside of that little community because there just wasn't enough. And then I'm like, well, where can we go? What can we do? And it started to just grow from there real quick. And that's what really opened my eyes to it.
And so how many acquisitions have you made in total, do you think?
One, two, three, four, five, six, seven, nine,
9 over how many years?
nine.
Okay. All right. So you're doing this at a fast clip. You're doing one a year. I mean, talk to folks who are interested in that as a strategy. I guess I'd like to talk about one of two things. Like one is like if that's what something somebody wanted to do in their own market and they're listening to you and they're in Seattle or one of the other markets that we're serving, like, how should they think about one, finding those opportunities? figuring out whether or not they're good additions to their business, and then figuring out if they're good businesses to buy. Like, how do you think about those 3 things?
You have to have a team. You really do. You have to have people that are smarter than you and surround yourself with a lot of people that know what they're doing. Um, I have a fantastic executive staff. I have a fantastic CEO or CFO, and it helps every e- every opportunity is a great opportunity, right? Until you get into it.
It's always fun to shop. It's kinda a little harder once you buy it, you know?
Right, right,
Yeah.
and there's a lot of struggles there, but you have to piece it together with your own market, and that's individualized, because there's a lot of different aspects to towing.
So if you look for people who are kind of strong in, business was stronger in things that you weren't serving, like, if you were heavy duty, they're light duty, or they had an impound lot, or I mean, how did you were you looking for things that were complementary, or were you just looking for things that sort of just added more capacity to the business that you were already serving and kind of got you into new markets?
The first few were they I don't wanna say they were dying, but they weren't flourishing,
Mhm.
and we went into them, and I saw a lot of room for opportunity, and then it was complementary to what we were already doing, and then that kinda ergonomically fit together. Now, the last couple, they've been profitable businesses, really good businesses, and we wanted to encompass them because it fit in our structure. It fit in the area that we work.
Great.
That was our biggest thing, was creating a market that continues. It's like playing Tetris. You, you know, you want to get a certain block that you can manage that helps complement each other. So now all of our companies overlap and complement one another.
How did you find them? Like, were these people that were already in your network and they came to you, and so you've gotten momentum off of that? Is it you just sort of just kinda kept looking out at what else was in the market? I mean, how did you make sure that, you were kind of the first call that people were thinking about when they were ready to sell their business?
They have all been super random. The last one that I just did, I talked to the guy probably 9 years before this deal actually went through, and we looked at it twice and it didn't make sense. And then he called me again and we did it. One of them, we were in Florida. My wife and I were in Florida for spring break. We were looking at a company down there because I thought it'd be fantastic to get out of the cold for the winter and run a company down there. It ended up not working out. And we came back to Ohio. We were talking about it at the gym, and the lady that was beside us, she's like, "You guys have a towing company?" We're like, "Yeah." She's like, "You should call my husband's aunt's uncle's sister's cousin. She owns a towing company and she doesn't know how to run it." We ended up with that business. It was crazy. They're just random, but really it's being out there and having the conversations with people. It's going into the shops. It's being helpful to other towers. That's what gets you out there.
And how have you had to finance buying the businesses in a bunch of different ways and get creative? I mean, you talked about the story about buying your first business from your parents, and so you had, I guess that's seller financing. But what has it been a little bit of everything, and has that changed over time?
Yeah, we did seller financing on the first one. The actual first real loan we went to the bank with, they would only lend me 50%. So we had to self-fund and then do that. The next one, we actually encompassed a fleet, so we just bought the assets. So that was actually easier because we were doing basically vehicle loans.
Yep.
Um, the next one we did, we went to the bank for a lot. Um, we were originally with Chase Bank, and my team around me kept saying, "You need to find a different bank because sometimes big box banks towing company doesn't fit in there." I ended up getting introduced to a guy who was at it's called First Fed of Lakewood, so it's a like a medium sized bank. We called them, and next thing you know, it was like, "All right, you're approved." I'm like, "Okay, let's do it." And then now after you've gone through that, it really makes it easy. now that you have a relationship with the bank and you're able to get through it the first couple times and you make the payments and don't default, um, now really the sky's the limit.
Yeah, that totally makes sense to me. Like, for us, we've had a bunch of different banking partners. I mean, we're a rapidly growing technology company, and we actually have a sort of a regional banking partner as well that specializes in technology companies. And I think that's super critical to have somebody that really understands your business to be your partner, because it's like, to your point, I mean, the big banks like Wells Fargo and Chase provide a pretty standard set of services to folks, and good at what they do, but they're not going to know you,
Y-
and your business, and be able to get creative. And I think when you're doing businesses that look like mine or look like yours, like, you do need that creativity and willingness to kind of think out of the box and think about how to leverage your assets to get lending, or how to, can you uh are there other creative ways to finance some of the things that you're doing, versus just sort of, straight up debt?
It's getting your story out there. That's really
Yeah.
the biggest thing.
Are there any like lessons learned if somebody really wanted to do what you do and buy businesses, and we're thinking about that strategy? Like, how should they? What are the big questions or things? Other You talked about the team, you talked about having relationships in the market, but like, are there two or three other tips that you would give somebody to think about as they were trying to evaluate a business that they'd like to buy?
Yeah, you have to be precise with it. You have to make sure it fits and you understand it well enough to be complementary.
Mhm.
If you're not using it complementary, it probably won't work. Um, we did one and it almost sank the ship. We thought it was a great idea. And we went in and it was a whole lot more than what we thought to get it up and where we needed it to be. And it it was tough. And we thought our original team could handle it. And then as soon as we left that location to the other location, it started to suffocate back here in the OG company. So you you really have to think it through. You really have to have great people involved and you really have to be able to have hard conversations. I kind of shied away from them at first
Yeah.
and I learned now it's tough conversations every day. It's like going to the gym and working out. If you're not if you're not uncomfortable at this level, then it'll never work. I've learned I have to be uncomfortable every day I walk in the door, or it's I'm not pushing myself to where it needs to be, and it'll eventually suffocate the company.
And as part of doing these uncomfortable conversations is sort of, integrating systems and back office, tools, people, sometimes assets. I guess this leads us a little bit into talking about, the tools and technology you use to run your company. But first, like, do you integrate your companies, and sort of how, and what are the big things that you're kind of trying to tie together once you buy and kind of bring them into your fold? And is it sort of your tech stack? Is it other things? And then, to the extent that it is sort of more the technology, let's talk about a little bit of what you use to run your business from a tech standpoint.
They all are independent companies, but I've put them in a close network market so that they're all complementary. So one company over here can run calls for this company over there if it makes sense. And it just helps getting the customer handled quicker. It helps getting the calls cleared up quicker. And that's really what it is. Some people get confused with it and they think, oh, well, he has a bunch of towing companies and it's predatory, but it's really not. All the companies that we have been here for years. It's just we're utilizing them better together and being transparent. We're not 100% there yet. But we use Tobook, which has been incredible. I've been with them since day one. Actually, when we started the when the first company, we used to use Post-it notes. So I would get a Post-it note, I would go out and do this call, I would drive back to the office to get the next Post-it note, and then I would go out and do that call. Tobook came alive and it was, hey, you can put this app on your phone and it'll do everything for you. So we did that. The other thing we use is we have GPS in all the trucks, so that ties into the Towbook app, which ties into being able to dispatch them. Microsoft, we love that platform, so we have Teams chats because they have dispatchers in 6 different locations, but they all got to be able to communicate. And then honestly, tying in RoadSync was a whole nother helpful event for us because the drivers are on the road with 100 plus employees. It's hard to have all those devices for them to run the credit card. So prior to that, we would use web-based um, credit card. So they would put the card in the call, type it in, tell the dispatcher to run it. The driver would transpose a number. They're out on the side of the roadway. Then the dispatcher's going back and forth. It was a bad deal. And then you guys came in, which was super helpful, and that's been a key for us too.
Yeah, no, talk to folks about, you know, talk to about like what you talked a little bit about what you were doing before, but like, you know, did you implement RoadSync and sort of how you do have a fun story about how you came across RoadSync, but did you implement RoadSync for efficiency purposes, for better like revenue capture? Is it because of chargebacks? So like, what was the thing that made you most interested, and have you found to be most beneficial about having RoadSync as part of your toolkit?
So for implementing RoadSync for me, it was time spent running credit cards and worrying about getting them right. And to the chargeback, that was huge for me. We get quite a few of them, and it just started becoming all the time. So that's when you guys showed back up on my doorstep, and I was like, all right, let's give them a shot.
Talk a little bit about specifically what we do for you that's different in terms of chargebacks. Cause like, we don't claim to eliminate all chargebacks. Like if somebody really wants to charge something back, like they'll find a way. But we really help people make sure that they reduce the incident of it. But just, talk about the things that you use that are tools that we have for you guys.
You guys integrated with Towbook, so we put the owner or customer's information in the call at point of contact when we're taking the call. One of the questions we always ask when we're taking a call is, "Hey, how you paying?" When they tell us credit card, we say, "Once the driver gets there and assesses the situation and makes sure it is what you say it is, we're going to send you a link for payment." Um, at that point, so fast forward, driver gets on scene. We have all the information in the call. The driver radios back to dispatch, says, "Hey, all is well. We got it." They send the link from RoadSync to the customer. So then the customer is physically putting the credit card information in. Basically, they're signing the receipt, which is our biggest problem with chargebacks virtually.
Mhm.
So I mean, you don't eliminate 100% of them, but you do eliminate 99.9.
And are you all using 3DS with us? Do you know? And do you know what that is? So it
No,
adds an extra verification. So it actually makes people verify themselves even more through their bank issuer. So basically, Visa and Mastercard will send a second notification to people, and people have to be like, "Yes, this is me." And if those go through that sort of process, there are no fraud chargebacks. So
yeah.
a lot of folks are using that. It's pretty rare to use it. Like sometimes the airline companies have been using it. It's relatively new in the US, but that we found that that's been helping folks with fraud chargebacks quite a bit.
Another big piece for us is the EFS and com checks.
Mhm.
We do a lot of heavy commercial stuff, and having somebody who doesn't speak great English call into the office to give you the express code and all of that, this streamlines it along with uh you guys allow them to use fuel cards. So
Mhm.
it gives you another avenue on the side of the road to actually get your bill paid. It saves my dispatchers jump up and down. I check with them. I'm like, "How's it going?" They're like, "That's the best thing ever. You probably save us an hour a day."
That's great. Anything else about sort of the technologies you use? You and I talked a little bit before we started the webinar about AI and how you personally use it a lot, but like what's next? Or sort of like what next new tool are you looking for? Would you be interested in or what are the new things you're sort of thinking about for the future of your business, technology-wise?
I've actually reached out to Tobook already and started the conversation with them about AI dispatching.
Yep.
Um, I can tell you across our markets, dispatchers become friends with drivers, and guys need off an hour before their shift, and so on and so forth. And it becomes very inefficient where AI doesn't have emotions. It doesn't care who the driver is or where they're at or what they're doing. It just says, this is the closest truck to the customer and it'll handle it. So I really look forward to that.
And so are you interested in that just for, like, the rules where your dispatcher you'd still have a human give the orders, but they would know, "Okay, this is the I'm just relaying the information." And so the AI will determine optimum route, who needs to get the next deal, blah, blah, and so forth? Or are you thinking about, like, full on little
No,
robot voice?
no,
Yeah.
you still need the human because our
Yeah.
industry changes every second.
Yep.
But it would be really helpful to unstack the calls. You know what I'm saying? And then
Yep.
AI
Mhm.
would be able to give you a better idea of time. So
Yep.
we have a pretty good idea, but AI would be a lot more specific. Where you call in, we put your call in, AI can literally tell you, yeah, it'll be 74 minutes before they get there.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, that's very doable. We actually use AI to power our sales calls. And the efficiency gains you can get on that are crazy, right? You no longer have someone pecking through a list and deciding what they want to call it next.
Even meetings and all of that, I use 2 different apps for that. I use Otter AI, which captures my meetings, so it comes in, it listens to the meeting, it records it, it types me out a narrative of what happened, it has action items. Some of the meetings, I don't even have to get in anymore.
Yep.
Um, and also we use it when we talk to employees so that we can put that in their file. So
Yep.
then they say, "Hey, you offered me a $40 raise at 90 days." You could go back in and say, "No, it was a $4 raise. Here's the recording of you saying it." It's just super helpful and way more efficient.
That's great. No, that's great that you're using those types of tools, and like hopefully Tobook is thinking about building that for you, because I think that would be a great value add.
Same.
Um, so let's talk about regionally. So you're in Ohio. Are there any trends or things going on specifically regionally that are impacting the towing business that sort of has changed how you operate over the last couple years, or just, what are some things that are kind of specific to the markets you're serving?
Ohio is more legislative.
Yeah.
We're getting it the legislation in Ohio hasn't changed since the 1980s. Um, so we work really hard with the Association of Professional Towers on that, and it, it helps make it easier for the tower to get rid of scrap cars. Um, the the whole title issue has been a real pain up here. The police departments don't want to do it. Trying to get the BMV to get on board to do it, legislating it through the state so we have an avenue has been a whole thing. Dealing with the insurance companies and payments and price gouging has also been something that we deal with a lot up here.
Yeah.
I try to advocate for the tower. Anybody who calls me or who wants to talk about it, I try to help them write their bills and explain how we do it. So that way everybody's more unified. The more we stick together and the more we explain it, the easier it is to keep it moving.
And if you were, giving some advice to somebody starting a towing business now, what would you have wanted to know? Or what would you tell somebody if they were interested in getting into the business?
I would tell them to run. It's a hard 24-hour business that never stops. So if you have that kind of energy, then go for it. Being honest, I would tell them to be themselves and don't overpromise. If you can do it, do it. If you can't do it, tell them you can't do it. It goes a lot further. Um, I've I've realized over the years, if I tell people I can't do it, or if we screw something up and I call them and I say, "Hey, look, we're sorry. How can we make it right?" It's those type of conversations that actually make it better.
And do you like how do you think things are going to change? Like as you think about the next 5 to 10 years, everything from electric vehicles to regulatory changes, like what do you think's next for the industry, and what are you thinking about for like the next season of your business?
I think you're going to see a lot more technology driven. things. It's going to take a little bit more of the human aspect out of it, I believe. The electric cars, I think that goes down the hill now with the new election cycle that just happened. I don't know that we really want to get into politics, but I was worried about the electric cars. We just had one crash. It was a fatality. They wanted me to put it in the building, and I said no way because they catch on fire.
Yep.
Um, and we don't have any way to blanket them or take care of that. It's tough.
I know I heard, I was talking to James Bennett last time in our last webinar, and he told me that he had purchased those boxes that you put
Yep.
some and that they're phenomenally expensive, and really difficult to get your hands on these days. But I had no idea that that was, the new challenge of electric vehicles.
Yeah, I think that's going to be it. More regulation, um, which isn't always necessarily a great thing, but I think it'll be a safer world.
Good. Well, I am going to open it up to questions. We obviously talked about a lot of things in this session. Love for folks to have a chance to talk to Brian or ask questions that they have on their minds. Let's talk about hiring. Um, how do you hire good people? How do you retain good people? This is a difficult job, right? It's a difficult job. There's a lot of safety concerns. It's the hours. You talked about the hours. I mean, even for the people that are working for you. So how do you find people? And how do you get them to stay working with you?
Yeah, it's hard not to take the first person who walks in with a pulse and a driver's license. Um, for us, what we do, our process a little bit. We so if you come in, you fill out an application, we have you sign. So we run your background and we run you through our insurance before you even get an interview. From there, you'll interview with one of our managers. If they think that you're somebody that will fit in our culture and fit in our company, then one of the executives will interview you again, and then we'll talk about it in a meeting and take it. It's been for me, it's difficult because I want to change the face of the towing industry. But all the subcontracted markets are hard because they don't want to pay you what you're worth, right? So they all hold your wages down, and then you're competing with Circle K trying to get employees. So it's super difficult. We use Facebook, social media to get people in the door, and then we really work hard at trying to find good people who can fit.
Yeah.
We want a work ethic. We want you to love coming to work. We try to create a family culture. Um, it's just getting them in and grooming them into that world is what we try to do.
And is there any like hack you have for finding talent? So, for example, um, sometimes sales teams like to find people who are college athletes because, they'll get up at 5 a.m. and train and grind away. And, sometimes people have little hacks that like indicate to people that they're good talent. Is there anything that you have that, or just a sense about people that you feel like kind of usually works out or you look for in someone?
So interestingly enough, as much as I love technology, the older generation,
Hmm.
one of my very first employees was an older gentleman who drove the squad for the fire department next door, and we asked him, "Hey, do you want to drive and get paid?" And
Hmm.
we put him in a truck, and he kind of grew with us. So we look, we definitely try to get older people that their work ethic is just 100% different than the younger culture right now.
Yeah.
They show up, they might not be the fastest, they might not be the best at technology, but man, they're reliable.
One last thing for you, and then we'll wrap up. Have you thought about, are you in any businesses? How would you take this business outside of towing? Have you been interested in taking it beyond sort of core towing business? Or just have you personally been interested in sort of, other types of businesses to add? I actually might have one more question for you, but let's see.
I'd like to get kind of into the private equity side of stuff
Mhm.
where you purchase businesses that need help. Maybe they're struggling with a certain amount of stuff, so you put money into them, and then you go in and help them. I like to help people, I really do, and different industries really they interest me. You
Yep.
know, like, I have a friend who owns a countertop business, we talk all the time, and it's like, "Man, we have the same problems, but you do countertops and I do cars."
Mhm.
And so I would really love to get into that, and I think that'll probably be my next step.
Yeah. No, that sounds like fun. We did have one audience question. They asked about if you could talk a little bit about your driver training procedures and like what do you do to train your new folks?
When we bring them in, they ride in the truck for about a week, just learning technology, learning culture, learning what we do. From there, they start driving, but they're not allowed to do anything else. They just get used to driving the truck. Then they get a little bit of the online classes, like AAA does a safety course and a driver entry class. From there, we dug a ditch in one of our locations, so we have a simulated ditch which we can use to put the car in. We have a couple different ways to do that. We have a couple scrap cars that we completely took everything out of, so we let them start with that, so they can't hurt or break anything. Once we're comfortable with them there, then we continue to go. Training takes about a month to get them to where we're comfortable, uh, kinda letting them on a leash a little bit, but it takes in Ohio, it takes a good 3 to 6 months to get somebody really where you need them to go. But again, that comes back to dispatching, right? So we know the calls that are easy. We kinda understand that, so you kinda start them there, and then you get them on a couple accident scenes with different drivers, and then you just gotta softly work them into it.
You said in Ohio it takes about 3 to 6 months. Is it because of like having to deal with like inclement weather? Is it because of
Yep.
regulatory things about moving people off of the interstate? Like what is it that makes it a little more complicated in your market?
Yeah, the weather makes a difference.
Yep.
We can have somebody start in March and work until November, and then the snow hits and everything they've done's out the window because the truck's sliding around. It's difficult to drive. You have to be more mindful of the cars that you're stopping when you pull up to a car in a ditch. It's just a whole different world for them.
Well, that's all I got. Brian, I really enjoyed talking to you. I appreciate you taking the time. I'm sure our audience appreciated it.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me.
All right. Thanks everybody for joining us.